Well, yes, thank you so much for having me. As you said, it's been quite some time since I've been back here, back in Frankfurt, and seen people from MSF. Um, yeah, so I thought we could jump right in. I'll start off by maybe saying a little bit about me, what I'm doing at the moment, um, how I got how I got here. So my name is Carl. I've been a student at MSF, well, all my academic life, basically from year one through YP all the way um, to year 12 through the IB. And currently I'm studying at the University of Oxford at Merton College specifically. I can talk a little bit about what that means later on. And I'm reading for a degree in chemistry currently. Yeah, and in the IB, I did chemistry as a higher level subject, of course, in addition to physics and maths and history as well. So I did 4 higher levels, and then English and German in standard. And so lots of the questions that I got for this session were on how I decided to study chemistry, maybe what studying chemistry specifically is like. And I would say in arriving at the type of subject that you want to study, it's good to look at what your interests are as well as what your strengths are. You want to play to your own strengths, of course. And so you want to find something that you enjoy. And I'm happy to say that I do enjoy chemistry a lot. Some aspects more than others, of course, but I can get into some of the distinctions later on as well. But so first of all, you want to find something that you actually enjoy, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. And the more you actually enjoy the subject you do, the more ready you will be to commit the necessary time to actually studying this subject. So you want to find something that you really enjoy. However, you also want to find something that you're good at. And this, I think, can be really helpful if you've got a few things that you're thinking about, or maybe I really enjoy, I don't know, for me it was, I really enjoy maths, I really enjoy physics, I really enjoy chemistry. I know I want to go into a kind of natural sciencey direction. Which one do I pick? And if you're in a situation like that, and so I personally found that for example, I was a lot better at chemistry than I was at math. And so I could have studied math. I think I would have not been unhappy studying maths. But you want to find something that you are both good at and that really interests you. That's my piece of advice regarding that. So then I went into the application process with Oxford and with Cambridge as well. This is a little bit more extensive than it is for other UK universities. So this means you usually have to, in addition to doing your personal statement and getting letters of recommendation and everything, you have to usually sit an admissions test, and then you have to go through a round of interviews as well. And if there's specific questions later on, I can go into what interviews were like specifically. But so the process is a little bit more involved. And so then eventually I got an offer, and now I'm doing chemistry. And chemistry at university, I'll maybe go into that a little bit for those who are perhaps interested in taking this up, because it is a very, very interesting field, because chemistry at university is a lot more broad than you really initially think. So you get to do what you think of when you think of chemistry, for example. So you get to talk about different elements and their reactivity and different properties of the transition metals, for example. You get to go into all of that, of course. But you also get to do a significant amount of physics and maths. In physical chemistry is what this area of chemistry is called, which is basically applying the laws of physics and discoveries in physics to chemical problems. You get to talk a little bit about the chemistry of biological systems and the human body. So you get to go into a little bit of biochemistry as well. And of course, there is organic chemistry, which you get to do a tiny bit of if you do IB higher level chemistry. Unfortunately, not if you're doing standard level. But this is something that I like to describe as basically maths without numbers. It's very conceptual. It's very much based on pattern recognition. And on seeing, being able to imagine things in 3D and seeing what those look like if you flip them around, for example, or imagining various disconnections and seeing, okay, what products make what reactants. So this is a very conceptual. And very, I find it very interesting, but it's not really something you get to do that much in school. So this is another tip of mine, that subjects, a lot of the time subjects involve things that you don't really get to do in school, or that you get to do a little bit, but not really that extensively. So it's worth keeping in mind what your degree will actually involve when you're selecting something, and also maybe what kinds of interesting things you can find. Like I said, if you're very good at conceptual thinking and pattern recognition, then organic chemistry is something that will definitely be for you. Apart from doing chemistry, I also do some other stuff at Oxford as well. I don't get as much free time as one would perhaps think. It is a very busy program, especially because of the tutorial setup, where you get and you get put in very small groups with professors, which means there's really nowhere to hide. It's not like in school where you can sit in the back and sort of swim along. It's you actually have to be there and have to know the material, which means a lot of independent studying as well. This is one of the big differences, I would say, between university and between school, is that in school you get taken by the hand and you get shown around what things you need to know, and you get a nice comprehensive list of all of the things that you can be asked about. And at university, that's not so much the case anymore. In the natural sciences, it is still the case to a greater extent than in the humanities, for example, where you have even less guidance. But it is definitely the case that you have to work a lot more independently. You have to really manage your time well, and work on conceptually understanding a lot of the material. But this is great, because this is something the IB sort of slowly gets you working towards, and one of the skills I found most useful getting out of the IB was not so much the actual, a lot of the actual information itself, but learning how to to go through that process and organize your time, and those, you know, those kinds of soft skills. So I mean, in terms of the social side, definitely. This is where Oxford and Cambridge's colleges come in to really, I would say, the colleges really get an opportunity to shine, and that a college is basically, it's basically kind of your social unit. The college is the people you hang out with. It's where you you know, where you get your meals if you choose to get them in a provided by the university. Your college is where it's your community, basically, and within your community there is a you know, there are usually events that are organized, and that kind of stuff is great fun. So it's not like we only do studying here, even though there is you know, there is a lot of studying. So for example, there was a you know, there was a spring ceilidh organized by the college. This was a big dance that was great fun. And the colleges, because you live you live so close to each other. This is the other thing, you live in student accommodation with people from your college. You make friends relatively quickly. So this is not something you have to, I don't know, maybe coming to university, if that's something you're a little bit worried about, that's something where the college system, I would say, can definitely very nice social hub that creates quite a tight-knit community. All right, so I'll start going through some of the questions now, probably after having given a bit of an introduction. Let's see. What do I hope to do with my chemistry degree? Well, this is another thing that I would encourage you to look into. It's not something you have to stress about necessarily that much, because if you're this is why I said you should find something that you both enjoy and that you're good at. If you can find something that you're good at, you will be able to find some kind of occupation that relates to this, if you're good enough at it. And so you don't want to choose, I would say, a subject unless you're dead set on a certain career and you want to, I don't know, you want to become a doctor or something. You want to, of course, have your career options in mind, but you don't really want to choose a degree that you don't actually enjoy just because of the career options. This is not an opportunity. This is not a path that will lead you to success, because you will spend so much time doing it that, as I said, if you don't actually enjoy it, you're just not going to have a good time, and you're not going to put in the necessary hours that you need to actually excel at something. But yeah, so for chemistry, the big two directions are academia and industry. So either working in academic research or working in industry research and in a pharmaceutical research lab or something. Both of these are interesting. I've heard various accounts from different people on which one is better or which one is preferable. In academia, of course, working conditions are a lot tougher, and there's less. You have to apply for funding, and that can be very tedious. And also in industry, of course, you have a much higher chance at actually seeing the project you're working on be realized. However, in academia, you can do teaching as well and then work with students. And so, both sides have their advantages and disadvantages. But there is, with chemistry, as with any natural science degree, there's a ton of stuff you can do with it. And so, yeah, as I said, don't pick a degree because you think you'll earn a lot of money with it or something. That's not something you want to do. What does Oxford look for in its students? Do they only look at academics, or do they also look at extracurriculars? Well, so I would say academics are kind of a necessary but not sufficient condition. So you want to have your academic scores, of course, and you can go look up online on the websites what IB scores you'll need, and what test scores and whatnot. But these are not these are not going to be the big factors that will tip the decision in either way. And with regard to extracurriculars, you want extracurriculars that show your interest in a certain field and are related to that field. You don't want to, I don't know, maybe this is a difference between the UK and America. America, from what I hear, there's a lot of universities that are kind of big on sports or something. That's not really the case with the UK. You don't, basically, if you're doing chemistry, for example, the university will not care if you play football or if you, play the oboe or something. This is not something they're particularly interested in. As to how the decision is actually made, again, this is different from subject to subject and the different weight they place on the admissions test rather than the interviews, for example. But I can say that it'll probably be to a large degree the interview, how you perform during those interviews themselves if you get invited for an interview. Yes, extracurriculars, yes, but you want them to be related to your subject, and I'm sure your university counselors have told you plenty about that. How good should your marks be? Again, well, marks are not really are necessary but not sufficient. You need other stuff as well, but of course you need the marks too. How would you describe a typical Oxford student? Oh, this is quite tricky because there isn't really one specific type. But I would say what most people definitely have in common is that they just enjoy what they do. You just have to enjoy your subject, and then you will spend time with it, and then you will be good at it. So I don't know. It's this is the thing that, for example, you get the biologists who will very excitedly tell you about the fish they just dissected in the labs or something. You will get the economists talk about this super exciting economics model they just learned about. So people are really interested in their subjects. That's, I would say, the one unifying factor. But there's not really a one type of person that that this is specifically fixed on. How do you prepare for your interview? This is an excellent question, and one that there are lots of resources on the internet. In general, I would say, so for chemistry, for example, the interview was they had a bunch of pre-prepared questions, and then they asked everyone the same questions, and then depending on how you answered them, that was basically how they assigned you to how they differentiated between candidates. In general, I would say that in these interviews are meant to test your how you approach problems. So they will perhaps give you something that you don't know about yet, that you can't possibly have covered in school yet. And then they will give you hints along the way and see what you do with those and how you work through the problem. It's supposed to simulate a tutorial situation, which, as I said, is this special kind of teaching setup you have in Oxford and Cambridge, where you have these small groups of 2 or 3 people with one professor, and then you've done a problem sheet of the past week, and then you go over the problems on the problem sheet together, and you have in-depth discussions, and work on the problems together if there is any problems. And it's supposed to simulate that kind of environment, and you can find lots of colleges have example interviews online, where the types of questions you can see, and then maybe you can try answering some of those on your own. Or if you, I don't know, for chemistry, for example, you can look at the chemistry Olympiad. I hear is supposed to be quite good for getting you to think a little bit more in depth about problems in chemistry. But there is no one way to prepare, really. You just sort of have to be there on the day. What admissions test did I have to take? So I had to take the TSA, it was called, the so-called thinking skills assessment. So this was, they actually trialed this on our year group. So I don't think taking the TSA is a requirement anymore currently. But it's a conceptual thinking test. And to be really brief, these these entrance exams, you can really only practice for by doing lots of past papers. So if you need to take one of these tests to gain admission to your course, go online, look at a bunch of these past papers, and then do a bunch of these past papers in time. As this is, in my view, also the best way to prepare for the IB exams, because there's only so many times you can read over the material. You just have to do a bunch of past papers. All right. I am a little bit conscious of time here, so I don't know, should we maybe, if anyone here has questions.
I just want to know which subjects you took for your IB.
So I took history, maths, chemistry, and physics at higher levels, so 4 higher levels, and then English and German at standard level. And in terms of how the IB helps you prepare for interviews or for university in general, I think it would be good to maybe devote a little bit of time to that. So the things you really want to take out of the IB are learning how to conceptualize problems and large packets of information, basically, especially the rate at which you will be expected to assimilate new material is just so much higher, even than the IB. You want to be in a position where you're comfortable with just taking a bunch of information, making, a page worth, condensing it into, I don't know, 1 A4 page, and most importantly, identifying all of the conceptual links between individual aspects of it. So, I don't know, why is, let's see if I can think of an example. Let's see. I don't know, why is the second law of thermodynamics, for example, the way it is? Why is does the law of equilibria work the way it does? Where does this all come from? And this, I think, is a kind of a useful thinking about concepts in this way, asking yourself why things work, where things come from, is also a good way of preparing for the interviews, I think, with the IB chemistry material, because this is something that they could, that they could ask you. They could take any topic, basically, and choose to go really in depth into it. so you want to make sure you have a good conceptual understanding of why things work the way they do. And that's the question you always want to be asking yourself and asking your teachers during the IB is why? Why is this the way it is? Why does this work? And then that's where you can start getting to the kinds of higher levels of understanding that you need to do, not just well on interviews and stuff, but also do well on your IB exams. So in general, the experiments do take up a significant portion of your time. And I would argue actually almost too much, because of course, you don't just spend your time in the lab. You also, you have to do pre-lab forms and post-lab forms. And it all takes quite a bit of time. But in terms of the stuff that you actually get to do in the lab itself, so I have basically during term time normally 2 days of labs a week, where so I've usually got 2 lectures a day, except for this term where I had 3 because because this is usually the case in second term of or in Hillary of second year. But basically 2 days, Thursday and Friday, you've got lectures from 9 to 11, and then labs from 11 to usually around 4 to 5 with a lunch break in the middle. And this is all weeks of term except for maybe 1 or 2. So essentially you've got labs 2 days a week basically, and you do get to do things that are really interesting and that also relate to your practical course. So you get to play with the NMR machines. You get to make some crystals in a blast furnace and then shoot X-rays at them and see what happens. You get to you get to synthesize an organic compound and then see if you've actually made the thing you've intended to make using various types of spectrometer. So the practical course is good fun. It is just a big time commitment, and also one of the other things you need in a chemistry degree, I would say, is a sort of resilience, because things will go wrong, and they will go wrong badly often, and you need to be prepared to handle that. But it is good fun. All right. Any other questions?
I think we had one more submitted question regarding the personal statement. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that personal statements, they generally want you to talk about what you've done. I don't know if one you wrote for University of Oxford differed. If so, what would you recommend to include in a personal statement when applying?
So I actually think they don't really look at the personal statement that much. For chemistry, I'm sure they read it once and found it very interesting and then put it aside. I know for some of the other subjects, they do look at it a little bit more closely. And it does sometimes form the basis of what they ask you in those interviews. In chemistry, it didn't. But I don't know if you apply to do economics or philosophy or something like that. Maybe they can. Maybe the letter of reference or the personal statement can form the basis of some of the things they ask you in the interview. So you don't want to put anything on your personal statement that you don't know about, because it's quite embarrassing if they ask you about this thing that you say that you did, and if they start asking in-depth questions and they realize that you have no idea what you're talking about, then that's a little bit embarrassing. But otherwise, yeah, you want things that are related to the subject and that show your interest in the subject, but don't stress over the personal statement too much, because a lot of, it doesn't make up as big of a it's not as big of a factor as, for example, the tests or the interview itself.
Well, I think we've now covered all of the questions that were submitted. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any last minute questions anyone wants to ask before we end the meeting, but thank you very much for this lovely presentation and for sharing all your wisdom with us. I'm sure it will come in handy for those applying to university or those who are just curious. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, well, thank you. Good to see everyone.